The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
All right, let's get right into it. It's time for some Walking Dead What Ifs. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. And at this current moment, I'm not sure what the title of this video is, but I assure you it is not clickbait. Whatever the title of this video is, we will discuss it. However, this first one involves us. So if you're new to the channel, just hang in there for a second, and then I promise you we will get into whatever we aptly titled the video. I say that because if it's something, and you clicked on it randomly and you've never been to the channel before, you're like, oh, I want to see what someone thinks would happen if that were a thing. And then you get to it and you hear us talking about ourselves and you're like, I don't even know who these guys are. What clickbait? So it's not clickbait. We're going to get to whatever the video is titled. But this one right here is just so funny. We had to start off with it first. This is the part of the week in which we take your Walking Dead what if scenarios. For example, what if Shane and Lori never hooked up? And we discuss just what could have been. But to start this one off, it's a doozy. And I feel cheated. I'm going to say that, Stefan Miller. You cheated me, man.
I don't know.
I got cheated. But go ahead and answer the question, and I'll tell you what's wrong with this scenario.
Okay. Khal Drogo, Abraham, and me, JP, versus Justin, Michonne, and Arya Stark. Who wins?
My whole team collectively weighs 400 pounds. We could fit on some chairs and not break it. You get Abraham and Khal Drogo. I mean, your whole team collectively weighs like 1,000 pounds of muscle. I mean, minus you, but, you got two men together that probably weigh just think about that. You could fit my whole team weight-wise into like 1.5 of your people.
Yeah, but let's think about it. Arya Stark, so she transforms herself into Daenerys, who seduces and then slits Khal Drogo's throat.
But I think this is a straight-up brawl. I mean, what are the parameters?
I think she can use her powers. I don't know how the scenario comes to be. If this is just like a 6-man tag in like a cage death match or something, it's
clear that I would kill you, so there's one victory for my team, but the only other problem I have is like, okay, that's a good strategy. If Arya could put on Daenerys' face and distract Khal Drogo by thinking she's Daenerys and letting his guard down, then she slits his throat, now bam, we got two. But Abraham and Michonne, I mean, if she's got a sword, then but Abraham's a big burly dude, and I mean, he's a savage when he needs to be, man. I don't know. You got to remember, Michonne is a savage, and she can brawl, and she did hang in there with the governor, but, Michonne is, whenever she's faced with a opponent that weighs quite a bit more than her, if she doesn't have a weapon, she'd have been screwed. I mean, remember the governor did kind of best her until she got that piece of glass and stabbed him in the eye. So she's resourceful, but I mean, really, can we? I don't know. I mean, whenever I think of these versus scenarios, I imagine an open field.
Okay.
And there's nothing you can grab. There's no broken glass. I mean, yes, Michonne possesses the ability to defeat Abraham, but when I'm thinking of strength, fist to fist, I mean, like no weapon. I think Abraham's just got the sheer size and strength to. I think he can eat a couple of punches, and I think that he could just bear hug her and break her back.
Well, first off, I would be riding Khal Drogo's back like Yoda. My feet, I would. You remember, like, what was it? One of the Road Warrior movies. There was like this big, like, mutated giant, and there was like a little dwarf dude, just like sitting in a cage telling him what to do. That was a
character in one of the more recent Mortal Kombat video games. I could have told you the name if I won't trying to think of it, but it's a big, burly, beastly thing, and then there's like almost this little kid,
right,
like riding its back or whatever.
See, that would be me on Khal Drogo. I would just be like, all right, fellas.
Can I just imagine you all skip into the fight like you're on Khal Drogo's shoulders, and he's got his hands wrapped around your legs, which to him are like little chicken legs, and he's just holding them, and he's skipping to the battlefield.
Yeah, that would pretty much be it.
No, but Stefan Miller, I'm not going to lie, I feel a little cheated. Why does JP get all the muscle? I mean, don't get me wrong, I did get the more cunning of them because Khal Drogo, while he's not stupid, he is mostly brute strength. Abraham does have a bit of a strategic mind, but again, his main asset is his brute strength. And then assuming because JP has not been to the gym in like a year and I have continued to go, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I might be slightly stronger than JP. So, they've got 2/3 of the muscle. And yes, I do know that Arya Stark is extremely cunning, and she hung in there with Brienne of Tarth, actually technically defeated her, wouldn't you think? She got the drop on her a time or two in combat. So if she had, it's so many variables. I'm going to say this. So Stefan Miller, hold on. I'm not going to completely down you. If Michonne and Arya have weapons, then I think we can win. If we don't have weapons, I don't know that we can win.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe I can get lucky and take JP out, but then what? I turn around and Abraham and Khal Drogo have killed my teammates, and now those two come, and I imagine each one grabs a half of me and splits me in half, and then that's it.
And don't forget, Arya Stark can just kind of fly out of the air from nowhere and stab you through the heart like she did the Night King.
But again, if she don't have weapons, we're saying, and I'm messing with you, Stefan. I'm not generally mad or irritated. I'm picking at you, having some fun. But I do imagine with weapons, then Team Justin has it all day. Without weapons, I don't see how we stand a chance against all that muscle.
Yeah.
I feel like Khal Drogo is just going to pick me up and beat the other two to death with me. And then, JP would probably taunt me a little bit. And then Khal Drogo would just rip me in half and it'd be game over.
Khal Drogo, he's
a savage, man.
Yeah, it's tough to beat that guy.
Granted, he did get beat by a chest cut. And meanwhile, we've seen, in other dramatic shows, people get shot, lose a limb, and Merle lost a whole hand and survived. Khal Drogo got cut in the chest and it got infected and killed him. So
yeah, he's definitely got some kind of immunodeficiency. With the pandemic going on,
that could be it.
Corona would get him before he even made it to the battlefield.
But Stefan Miller, I love questions like that. Thank you for the good laughs. That was a fun way to start the Walking Dead What Ifs. Anytime you think of one of those versus scenarios, just throw them out there. I very much enjoy that.
Yeah. Moving on to Allie Smith.
Allie.
And she left this a mere 13 hours ago.
Ooh.
What if Morgan took Carl's Forgive Negan arc from the end of All Out War, i.e. argued with Rick about the morality of killing saviors and ended up dying and changing Rick's mind in the process? This would lead to Carl still being alive, as well as a Morgan-free Fear the Walking Dead. How would Carl deal with the Whisperers if Rick wasn't there? How would Carl not having Rick around affect him, given that he would still be a teenager?
Oh, Allie, what a good question. And here's something interesting, and JP, you can back me up on this. Haven't I said on this very podcast for years, I've said the way it should have happened, hasn't that been exactly what I've said should have happened? That Morgan built the jail cell. Morgan just suddenly came back into Rick's life right before the Negan War. Morgan's whole philosophy of all life is precious, everyone deserves a second chance type deal. I have said leading up to, back in season 6 or so, I was saying the way I see it going down is that Morgan is going to die. He already built the jail cell. Morgan is going to die. And when Rick has the chance to kill Negan, and again, this is long before they had killed Carl, so this is the way I thought it was really going to go down, was that Morgan would die heroically, but even as he was dying, he still might be preaching to Rick about all life is precious, don't let this change you or whatever. And when Rick has the chance to kill Negan, he thinks about Morgan, the guy that saved him in the beginning, the guy that, gave him a second chance and blah, blah, blah. And so he finds it, how poetically, just is it that Negan rots away in a cell built by a man he killed.
Yeah.
And I remember we were talking about that years ago. So Allie, good thinking. That's exactly what I think we thought was going to happen for the longest time. And instead they just went a really stupid route. But no, just great minds. We've been thinking that Oh, and I'm sure lots of people. I don't think we're unique in that. I think lots of people thought it was going that way, and then it just got off kilter. But I just got excited because I'm like, yes, I knew. I'm not the only one that was thinking that. But I think Carl should definitely still be in the show.
Yeah, the only bad part about that, the only downside is we wouldn't have got Cowboy Morgan.
Cowboy Morgan.
But otherwise, yeah, Allie, you, yeah.
We wouldn't have gotten the joy of seeing Henry's head on that pike.
Yeah, that too.
But on the other side of that coin, we wouldn't have had to deal with the annoying character that was Henry, because Carl would have been there to take that story arc.
Yep.
Carl would have met Lydia, would have fell in love with her. We'd actually have the first lasting romantic interest for Carl, because, him and Lydia were together for a hot minute. And, I don't want to spoil the comics as to whether they stay together forever or not, but they're together for a long while. Mm-hmm. So we would have had a very interesting dynamic with Carl and Lynn. I was really looking forward to that. Chandler Riggs had really grown as an actor.
Yeah.
The character had grown on me because I was just not a big Carl guy until about, like I said, I think the moment that changed me was in season 5 when the Terminus folk were coming up in that church. And it's just something about the way Carl, he's protecting the baby, and it's a few of them that stayed behind. And as soon as Gareth and his crew roll in, Carl pulls his gun and just very calmly points it at the door and waits. And it's like something in that moment changed me, because up to that point, I wasn't really that big on Carl. He just kind of was this bratty, annoying kid that Rick had to, lug around. And it's like, wow, he's really grown up. Like he's a savage. Like he's perfectly comfortable with what he, Gabriel's in the corner about to shit his pants.
Right.
And here's Carl just cool, calm, and collected. I'm like, and from that moment on, I started liking Carl.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would have loved to have seen, I know I'm yammering on, I'm sorry, but I am just so, I think we're so passionate about Carl should still be alive.
Yeah. And when she says, how would Carl deal with the Whisperers if Rick wasn't there? I don't think Andrew Lincoln would have left the show if Carl hadn't have died,
No, absolutely
so I don't think
not.
we would have had that scenario. But, if Rick died no matter what and Carl was there, with the Whisperer War, I think he would have stepped up and, led the group as best he could.
Oh, yeah. I think he would have had a mix of I don't think he would have had the whole Henry role of I'm a stick ninja. The whole getting drunk and arrested. I don't think we would have had any of that, but he would have taken Henry's role in the fact of following Lydia back. And, I feel like it would have been a mix of Daryl and Henry. You know what I'm saying? I feel like he would have been the one to go down to the gate and confront Alpha for the first time in Rick's absence. Because, of course, if Rick were there, it would have been Rick. Or Maggie. I actually was really looking forward to seeing Maggie step down there and have a face-to-face with Alpha, but of course she was gone by that point. But, I feel Carl would have been a mixture of Daryl and Henry. And, Daryl would have still been there and been, the muscle, but I just feel like Carl would have had more of a leadership role. You got to think, how many years in the future is this? 6 years from Rick leaving. So Carl would be at least close to 20 or maybe a little beyond. I'm not good at calculating his age because, of course, as kids with puberty do. He started off the show as a 10-year-old little child, and within 3 seasons, he's got a deeper voice. But I imagine he'd be a young man. So I feel like Carl would have definitely had more of a leadership role. He would have been the one to step down there to tell them they're not giving her Lydia back. I feel like Carl would have had three things. I feel like Carl would have been a mix of Henry, of Daryl, but also a little bit of Rick from the comic thrown in there. Mm-hmm. I feel like Carl would have been the one Alpha would have walked and shown the herd and been like, this is what I can do, and I'm choosing not to. Stay out of my territory.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man, it really sucks. One of the best arcs in the entire Walking Dead canon, and we didn't have so many main characters to go into it. But
yeah, absolutely.
It is what it is. They still pulled it off pretty well.
Yeah, I generally enjoyed the whole Whisperer War in the show, and I applaud them for not doing what they did with Negan and stretching it out longer than it needed to be. I felt like everything kind of fell into place at the right time. Mm-hmm. I know it felt more stretched out, but if you go and binge the show, I bet you it won't feel like the Whisperers are there as long as some other enemies, just because, we just had to go so long between the last and the finale. It felt like they've been there forever, but, I felt like they did a good, perfect timing
Yeah, man, not bad at all. We got a nice long one from UV. Are you ready for this?
Never mind. That's corny. I was going to try and make a pun with that, but it didn't work.
Well, here's a scenario where Rick goes with Morgan and Dwayne instead of going off by himself, and also meets Michonne before he met up with everyone else. In this scenario, he still falls in love with her because he assumes his family has died after many years of searching for them. He has a new family with Michonne and RJ, and Morgan becomes his brother, and Dwayne is still alive. Rick meets Negan before he forms the Savior, so Rick now has two right-hand men, but chooses Morgan because of their longer-running friendship. So Rick and Morgan form their own version of the Saviors, but they do not have bad intentions until Rick and Morgan lose RJ, and Dwayne, who are much older, go out on a long supply run, running into Carl and Shane at the prison. Shane and Carl execute them, before they thought one of the governor's men. Rick and Morgan, who hear the gunshots, run to their sons, only to see both of their sons lying dead on the ground, with Shane and Carl holding the guns with the rest of the group. Basically, all the characters that were still introduced. They were on the road surviving because the governor destroyed the prison, but got away with. So Shane and the rest were forced out on the road, which led them to killing Dwayne and RJ in the confusion. Rick sees an older Carl and Lori holding Judith. What does he and Morgan do from there? Where does the story progress from there?
Only question I have is if RJ and Carl were out on a supply run, I'm imagining they didn't get very far if they were shot, and Rick and Morgan were able to run there quick enough to find them laying there with the two gunners still standing there holding the smoking guns.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting twist. That'd be an interesting alternate universe. I mean, what do? You know, your son just killed your other son, but he didn't know that was his brother. Which it's interesting because I don't know. Do you think that Michonne could have been good? Because we saw that meeting Andrea and taking care of her is what really brought Michonne back from the edge. You know, I mean, without Andrea, she just kind of descended into evil. Do you think that it was Andrea in specific that saved her, or do you think just finding anybody at that time would have saved her?
I think the right person, man. I think meeting Rick would have had a good influence on her, and you know, once she got that Rick dick, there wouldn't be no turning back, man. She'd be on the side of the angels forever.
The Rick dick.
The Rick dick, baby.
I'm gonna give you this Rick dick.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Michonne definitely would have. You know, I don't think she would have ended up being like evil Michonne like we saw in that.
Well, you say the Rick dick, but then when Victor Strand steps up, hello, my name is Victor Strand, and you, Michonne, you are the queen of my heart.
Yeah.
Rick would be like, what the hell, Michonne?
I definitely think Victor Strand would, you know.
Morgan would be like, all ass is precious, Rick.
Oh man, that's true enough.
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, what a predicament to be in. I know that sounds a little lighthearted considering a son just killed another son, but yeah. I mean, what do you do? Him and if he went with Morgan and Dwayne, then he never had his big falling out with Shane. So up to this point, in his mind, Shane is still like a brother.
Yeah.
I guess seeing Lori holding another baby, it wouldn't take long for him to put two and two together and be like, this guy ain't my brother no more.
Yeah.
I take a long nap and you do my wife.
Yeah. That. Whew. Yeah,
Jesus.
That would be, and then, man, cold-blooded. Just Carl and Shane both gunning down two relatively, you know, young kid. I mean, they wouldn't be like little kids, but they'd still be pretty damn young.
I was going to say, Dwayne would still have to be a bit older than RJ. So, I mean, RJ would still somewhat be a child during this time
they
period.
Just gun his ass down.
So they just gunned down like a preteen and someone Carl's age. I mean, if we're talking about this is the time period of the governor, hell, Carl was barely a teenager, if he even was at that point. He might have been like 11 or 12. I mean, I can't keep up with how Carl ages. But, I mean, so you killed maybe two preteens and Shane, a grown-ass man. I mean, I think at this point, I don't know what would happen, but what should happen is Rick should just pop them all in the head. These are some cruel, heartless bastards, and they don't deserve the oxygen they're taking in.
Those canned beats are ours. Leave them be. Oh, you want them? We'll give you something.
And then be like, and Lori, Whose baby is that?
Oh my God.
I thought she was dead.
Jeez.
And then, Morgan be like, Rick, remember, all ass is precious, and you do have another wife now.
Yeah, that'll just be like, well, Lori ain't got no ass at all, so he ain't got to worry about it.
That's true. Michonne got a booty.
Yeah.
And Lori ain't got
She was flat.
nada.
As a damn 2x4.
Yeah.
Not to body shame, but damn, she just really ain't have much to grab onto.
Not compared to Michonne.
No, hell no.
Well, just imagine, like, Ezekiel steps in. I know what would happen if the whole premise is what if. Right as they're about to come to a head, you hear, gentlemen, wait a minute. Before we get to fighting, why don't we get to loving?
Yeah.
I always want to call him Father Gabriel for some reason. I'm King Ezekiel, Lord of the Barn of Pleasures. And before you pull those guns out, why not come to my barn and do a little target practice with your other guns?
Yeah, bury your dead sons later. Let's get the mucking.
I don't know, man. That would be tough. I mean, I don't think that Rick would just gun Carl down. I mean, I would think maybe he'd be like, Carl, no. And then Shane would be like, Rick. And he would be like, Shane, Lori, not my baby. Shane, Lori, bye, Shane. Bam. He'd shoot Shane in the head and then be like, Carl, if you didn't come out of my ball sack, I'd put a bullet in your head right now, too.
Yep. Jeez, what a nightmare scenario that would be.
I mean, I definitely don't think things would be hunky-dory.
No, don't either. Jeez. Taking us into some dark waters, UV, but I like it. I like it quite a bit. Let's see. We got a bunch more from Stefan Miller. Let us see. What if Shane got shot instead of Rick in the first episode of The Walking Dead?
Ooh.
Do you think Rick would have tried to get Shane out of the hospital like Shane did for Rick? And how would this difference in story change the show overall?
Oh, man, part of me wants to say I think Rick would absolutely try to save Shane, but at the same time, I think Rick's first priority would be
his family,
Carl and Lori.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Shane had the luxury at the time of being a single man. So, I mean, at that time, all he had was friends to worry about getting to safety, which, he did with Lori and Carl. And that's why I always say Shane is a very tragic character. I think it's safe. I don't think anybody hates Shane. I think most people I talk to, even if they despised him when he, for becoming a villain, they still love the character. I mean, John Bernthal is just an awesome on-screen guy. So, I mean, you always delight to see him in anything. But I think that I've always thought, I've always looked at Shane with a little bit of sympathy. And I'm sure lots have, because, I mean, it's like, dude, I just can't express in a time where everyone was being selfish and running for the hills and only worried about their own ass. This man ventured to the hospital in the midst of a pandemic where people were eating people and gunning each other down to save Rick. Like, that speaks volumes about the man he used to be. He used to, once upon a time, be a great friend, a true brother to Rick. And I mean, that's just the kind of thing, because I mean, I'm sorry, but in real life, all of us like to think of ourselves as the hero, but when shit hits the fan, 9 times out of 10, it's your own ass is the only thing you're worried about. I mean, we see tragically people sometimes leave behind their own children to save their own asses. And yet here this man goes out of his way, risking his own life. And what's so even more tragic than that is not only did he show up to try and wake Rick up when Rick didn't wake up and he even still thought he might be dead. What did he do? He tried to pick him up.
Yeah.
And carry him. But then, of course, soldiers were gunning people down, and it was, so he couldn't do it. I mean, but he was even willing to pick Rick up and carry him out of that hospital. So I always say, there is, once upon a time, Shane was a great guy. But, it's tragically, I don't know. Part of me wants to think that Rick would try to save him, but I think Rick would, if it was only, Lori and Carl. But then again, Shane was able to save Lori and Carl and try to save Rick. So maybe Rick would try to find time to save Shane.
Do you think that Lori was such a toxic person that she made Shane into the bastard he became?
I don't think Lori was all that toxic.
But maybe behind the scenes, it's like they say, behind every great man's a great woman. Do you think the reverse is true? Behind every monster is,
I think Shane just lost himself. I think that Shane is just a great example of true life. Rick was able to somewhat keep his humanity, and at least for a long while, he was able to focus on, being human and not just acting off of emotion and thinking about the right thing to do and keeping a conscience. And I think that, sometimes in real life tragedies, you do have the few people that do that, but more often than not, you have the Shanes. You have people who just lose themselves in their environment. And so I don't think that I've always said too, that I didn't particularly love Lori, but I never hated Lori until, after Rick killed Shane. She was like, don't touch me. Oh, how could you? And just acted so sick when it's like, you were just literally telling him like 2 episodes ago, something has to be done about Shane. He's going to get someone killed or he's going to kill someone. And then he tells you that Shane lured him into a field to kill him. Yeah. Something you totally should believe based off of the things that you've told Rick. And then Rick had to kill him in self-defense. And now you're mad at Rick. So that's when I started going, screw Lori. But before that, I didn't think Lori, I don't blame Lori for banging Shane because, think about it. You think your husband's dead. I hated the way she treated Shane, but I understand it from her point of view. If you look at it from her point of view, your husband's best friend tells you your husband's dead, starts getting in your drawers, you've fallen in love with him, and all of a sudden your husband shows back up. Just sounds like his boy was trying to get in your panties. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But then again, I feel bad that she wouldn't listen to Shane, because we knew as the audience that Shane had truly tried to save Rick. So it was a very conflicted place to be. But,
yeah,
I don't think that Lori, I think that Shane just lost himself. I think he got, and Shane being single, he didn't have anybody. And I think he didn't have a family. And I think that he had gotten so used to feeling like he had a family with Lori and Carl that when Rick showed up and kind of took that from him, it's almost like anybody who gets their family taken from them. You just kind of lose yourself.
In the music.
But anyways, what do you think? I know I'm yapping on and on today. I'm sorry. What do you think?
I think Shane would have tried to save, Rick would have tried to save Shane. And I think once he realized that there was no getting his ass out that bed, he would have left him like Shane left Rick. What are you going to do? You're going to haul around like 200 pounds of dead weight as the undead are trying to eat you? No way.
Now what's interesting is would Shane, I guess Shane would have still found them, though. I mean, if you look at a parallel universe where things mirror, if Shane would have been shot, been in a coma the same amount of time, which I know there are a lot more variables to that, but, let's just assume he wakes up at the same time Rick does. Everything's happened, but it's reverse, and he would still technically run into Glenn, I guess, if he took the same path Rick did.
Right.
But then again, I don't know, would he end up on the same path? Because he wouldn't have went to Rick's house, I don't assume. But maybe he would. He didn't have family, a family to go home to. Maybe he would have made his way to Rick's home, in which case, that's the closest thing to family he's got. And Rick's not there, and then he runs into Morgan and Dwayne, and they go through kind of the same thing. They go to the police station. Shane hooks him up, and he's off looking for people. It's just a lot of variable. I mean, Shane might have stayed with Dwayne and Morgan.
Yeah, he could have.
And stayed in town. I mean, you got to think, what would be his motivation? Rick's motivation was going out looking for Lori and Carl, going to Atlanta because that's where he thinks Lori and Carl might have went. Would Shane have heard that from Morgan and then been like, okay, well, I've got some friends. My best friend and his family must have went to Atlanta. I'm going to go look for Rick and his family, in which case then he would have went to Atlanta, probably would have ran into Glenn. Glenn would have taken him back to camp the same way that he did with Rick, and he would have reunited with Rick, Lori. But then again, Rick might have been in town with Glenn. Because you got to think, Rick won't to stay back at camp type.
No, he wasn't.
It was who? It was Andrea. I'm sorry, the lady that blew herself up. I can't remember her name at this point.
I can't either.
I used to know it, but it's just I can't remember it at this point. But you had T-Dog, Andrea, Gonzalez. Was it? What was his name?
It wasn't Morales.
Morales. That's
was it. Morales?
It was Morales. I kept calling him Gonzalez in the podcast where he had came back for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But Morales, Merle, Andrea, T-Dog, Glenn, Amy. No, Amy wasn't there. Amy was back at camp.
Oh yeah. You're just talking about the
group that was
team.
in Atlanta.
Okay, yeah.
But Rick might have been amongst that group.
Yeah.
Rick, he might have reunited with Rick right there on that rooftop. So, you could have had a very different Walking Dead if that was the case.
Yeah, he probably would have hooked up with Andrea and really, invested in that, and they would have been a power couple, and maybe she wouldn't have ended up in Woodbury. And I don't know, man. It would have been a very different show.
Yeah.
Very different show.
A million different paths that could take.
And here's something from Stefan Miller. It's not a what if, but it is something we've talked about, and I'm just curious if you've heard any more info on it. I haven't, but Stefan asks, have you guys heard about the news of Rick being cast for episode 10 of World Beyond? Have we? I know you said you'd heard that might have just been a false rumor. Is there any more intel?
I keep seeing back and forth, man. Somebody commented on one of our podcasts a week or two back saying that it had been confirmed that Rick was not going to be in the show, so we don't even have that to hold out hope for.
Uh-huh.
But then I keep seeing, I don't necessarily get a chance to read all of them, but I've seen an article from like comicbook.com or somewhere that's like, is Rick confirmed to be in episode 10 of, so that I'm not 100% sure, man. At this point, with the way that show's going, I wouldn't count on it because the show has done nothing to make me believe in it. So yeah. I wouldn't count on it because that would be, but we can hold out hope. We ain't got but a few more weeks. We'll find out.
Yeah, God, if I can make it through a few more episodes.
I believe Andrew Lincoln showing up is about the only thing that would make me anxious to tune into that show.
Yeah.
Because I fight the urge to just go on to bed and say screw it each time it comes on. But we will keep you updated, Stefan. Stefan's got another good one, keeping it like early on in the series. What if Carl died from Otis's gunshot in season 2? How would the group, Shane, Rick, Lori, and everyone else deal with this? And how would it have changed the story? Would Shane kill Otis and Herschel at that point? Wait, hold on, back up. I'm so sorry. I got a little confused with all the names. Can you do that one more time?
Yeah. So Carl died. Otis kills Carl accidentally in season 2. How would the group deal with this, and how would it have changed the story? Would Shane kill Otis and Herschel at that point? How would you, Justin and JP, have reacted in that situation if that was your kid? Oh, wow. Most close loved one to you that Herschel Otis not only let die, but caused the death of. Man. Oh, man. That's rough, man.
How do you think that? I mean, I don't think Shane would kill Herschel, but I definitely think Otis would have died.
Yeah. I mean, a guy, like that, he's definitely not going to last too long under those circumstances.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. He shot and killed Carl. There is no saving Carl. Carl's laying there dead. Do you think Shane would kill Otis?
Okay. Yeah, he probably would have just went berserker.
And that's if Rick didn't. I mean, I know Rick was a little bit more himself then, but at the same time, I mean, I still think part of it would have been just him and Shane sitting there putting rounds into Otis.
Yeah, I think, Rick would probably be there like cradling his dead son and crying, and Shane would have just
turned around and just blew his head off.
Yeah. Oh, I think Shane would have just grabbed him, threw him down, and just beat his skull in.
Oh, yeah.
I think he would have went full on like Wolverine, Berserker Rage, and
Call me crazy, but I could totally see John Bernthal playing Wolverine.
As I said that, I was kind of imagining it in my head.
I could see that. Like, I could see John Bernthal playing Wolverine. I think he'd be a damn good. Just beef him up a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a little guy by any means, but, beef him up a little bit and make him a little wider, and I totally could see him playing Wolverine.
That would be a hell of a resume, man, to be the Punisher and to have played Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez,
I think he can do it, man. I have faith in my boy. I think John Bernthal's awesome.
He's a good actor, and like you've said before, he's a shorter dude, which would be more in line with Wolverine from the comics.
Yeah, because Wolverine in the comics is like what, 5'3",
something like that.
Really, really short.
He's definitely not like tall, dark, and handsome like your what's his name?
Like Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. I like Hugh Jackman. I mean, he's a great
I do
on-screen
too, and he
Wolverine.
made that role his own. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But as far as comic to screen, he couldn't. He's about a foot taller.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if that was my child, JP, how would you react if that was your child?
I mean, unlike you, it's totally hypothetical for me. I mean, I imagine I'd be completely broken. I mean, just comparing it to losing like a beloved dog, like totally unexpected. I mean, that was awful. So I mean, I imagine a kid would be a million times worse. So,
I mean, it's I've always told my girlfriend, and I mean, it's not. I really don't say this as like I'm not shit. I mean, but I know that I have I have a very bad temper at times. I know that. And it's like, I've always told her, like, I saw a video of a guy trying to steal a little girl from like a balcony, like a outdoor dining area.
Oh
it was
my
like
God.
a caught on camera kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's this family. It's like a mother and two kids, and one's a little bit older, and one is like a toddler maybe. And this guy just runs up and amidst all this crowd and grabs the toddler and tries to run off with it. And fortunately, thank God, there was some brave soul there that grabbed this sorry piece of shit and put him in a chokehold and just slammed his ass.
Jesus.
And it's like I told my girlfriend, being that I have a daughter, and just I can't explain watching that the way my blood was boiling inside. Like there's something primal about protecting your child that goes beyond. That's why when you have these instances of someone beating someone to death for sneaking into the house and trying to kidnap the child or raping their child or something like that, I think it's totally warranted because when you're going on a basis of science, it's a mama bear kind of thing. Like there's something that is, in our DNA that doesn't work the same for everybody. But I think a lot of us, you turn into Wolverine. Like I told my girlfriend, I said, no shit, I'm not kidding you. The way I felt watching that, I feel like if I would have pinned his sorry ass to the ground, I would have pulled out my pocket knife and started ripping his.
Yeah.
I totally think, and I hope it never happens, but if somebody tried to steal my kid and I got my hands on him, I'm pretty sure it would be like some primal shit. Like they'd be unrecognizable by the time I got done with them. I mean, just the way I felt watching that video, I felt like I could lift a fucking car.
Right.
So if that were me and someone shot and killed my child, though I may regret it later because they didn't mean to, I think in the heat of the moment, not knowing exactly why or what, I would probably go straight up chimpanzee on his ass and just rip his face off. And oh, it'd be ugly, man. I think most parents can say that. If you have a kid, you understand that, there's just something programmed into your genetics to die protecting this little thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's all scientific. It's just the way our species has survived. In a lot of species, are willing to sacrifice themselves so that their young can continue, you know what I'm saying, to continue your species or whatnot. So it's definitely very primal type thing. But I mean, you see that a lot in the animal kingdom. Plenty of animals will sacrifice themselves to save their young.
Yeah.
So, or go berserk trying to protect their young. So,
yeah, man, that's some crazy stuff. There's been some dark scenarios in this edition of
it has. Yeah. I've always said I'm definitely not going to be the kind of dad that's like, I'll be here cleaning my gun when you get back with my little girl, because I've been a young man taking a girl out with no bad intentions, and that's unwarranted unless it's just some douchebag,
right?
But I mean, at the same time, it is definitely one of those have a good time, but if you do anything that she doesn't want to do, I will fucking end you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's like, I'm definitely not going to be that type, but at the same time, I am the type to where, like, if you try to hurt her in any way, I'm going to mess your shit up.
Yeah, man. That's a man, raising a daughter is a whole different animal. That's for sure.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to let her be herself. But like I said, you try to do anything she don't want to do, and I'm going to kill you.
I don't like how you're saying that directly to me.
No.
I feel very uncomfortable right now. Oh,
I swear to God, if she's like, Daddy, I got a date tonight, and your old ass shows up, I'm gonna just be like, JP, how you been? Come on in, man. Give me 1 second. Let me go get you a drink, and then I am gonna come back with a gun.
Like you haven't seen me in years, and I just show up out of the blue.
You're like fat and like just beard down to your belly, and you're like, hey, man. Well, shit.
Looking like a bald Joe Dirt.
Yeah, I might go for the gun on that one.
Yeah. Oh man, another good one here from Stefan. What if Lizzie killed Carol instead of her sister and escaped, ended up at Alexandria? How would that change the story? How would the group deal with her? Keep in mind, Tyrese is dead after the Noah arc, but her sister is alive in this timeline as she killed Carol instead. And part 2 to this, do you think Season 5 Rick would take it upon himself to put her down after Terminus?
I mean, would he, though? I mean, she killed Carol, who basically... Which, I don't know. Maybe he would, just because she killed Carol unwarranted, whereas Carol, at least, even though it was twisted and messed up, thought she was protecting the group, and Lizzie just did it because she's a freaking psychopath. Well, if her sisters are alive, did she just leave her behind, or did she bring her with her?
That I don't know.
I mean, I think if Rick and his group, if like she brought Mika with her and she told Rick, she killed Carol for no reason. She just killed her because she thinks that the zombies are better than being a person. And I think Rick probably would. I mean, Rick's got a baby.
Yeah.
Who this child has spent a lot of time around and stuff, So I don't think that Rick would. I don't know. Would he cast her out? Or part of me thinks Rick would just take her to look at the flowers too.
Yeah, that's tough, man. That's a tough situation to deal with under those circumstances. I'd like to think if he had the means to just keep her confined somewhere, he would do that. But, at the end of the day, Jesus, I don't know. You're talking about locking somebody in a room for the rest of their life from the time they're a little girl.
Oh, man, you know forever. What? You know what? A story arc they never used from the comics that was one of my favorites for Carl because it was such a character-defining moment was remember when you had the twin brothers and one killed the other?
Yeah. It was basically the Lizzie situation.
And then Carl climbs into his tent one night and kills him.
Yeah.
And, they don't know who did it at first. And I think Rick finds out that it was Carl. But it was such a character-defining moment for Carl because it was like, wow, Carl's getting cold. But at the same time, he didn't just kill for the fun of it.
No.
In the way this brother did. He killed because he thought this kid deserved to die.
Yeah.
How dope would that be to kind of blend those two scenarios? Lizzie kills Carol instead of Mika. When she comes back, Rick don't have the heart to put her down and don't know what to do with her. Carl sneaks in and takes her out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was wild, man. Just Carl knew that, one of the adults wasn't going to have the stones to kill that little boy. And that, if he didn't do it, he was going to kill someone else. They really should have brought that in.
That was one of Carl's best comic moments. It sucks that he killed a little kid, but it really kind of started showing you who Carl was becoming.
Yeah, and what he's willing to do to protect his people.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that would have been cool to integrate in there.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say if they wrote it in the way that Lizzie killed Carol, then Carl would eventually be the one to sneak in and take Lizzie out because he's got a little sister now he has to protect. And there's no way he's going to let some girl who looks at it like that, who might just sneak in and kill his sister one night.
Yeah.
That Carl goes ahead and takes her out and tells his dad, you keep letting people come back or you keep letting people live who don't deserve to live. Kind of like he told him when he killed that kid in the woods with Herschel. Remember when he's like, you didn't kill, Andrew and look what happened. Like every time you spare someone you should have killed, it always comes back to bite us in the ass.
Yeah.
And, just not letting that happen anymore, especially not now that we have, our little baby. We're not going to let that happen.
Yeah, that would have been some kind of pickle to be in. But oh man, here's another good one for if the shoe was on the other foot with someone getting killed. What if Dwight had actually killed Daryl instead of Denise like he planned in episode 15 of season 6? How would this have changed things with the lineup, the group, Glenn's death? Would it still happen? And who else would have taken the sanctuary instead of Daryl? Oh
wow! So Daryl catches the arrow.
Yeah,
which I don't get. He's like, I wasn't aiming for her. His thing kicks like hell. It's a crossbow, man. Like, yes. Unless there are just different. I've only shot, a few, but I've got one I've shot a lot. My little brother has one. I might be wrong on this, but I swear it's got like 100-pound draw or something on it. It's got a stiff little draw, but there's no kick to it. They don't kick. There's no explosion from a cartridge to push back on your shoulder. I don't know. It's forward momentum. I don't know. Just by the time it moves, the arrow's long left the crossbow. So I don't really know, if he was just saying that to give Daryl a hard time or what. Really, I don't know. That whole thing confused me because I'm like, it has a hell of a kick. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you would think they'd have some kind of weapons expert on set.
Sometimes I'll tell you, the very first episode, and hell, the first few minutes, they make a big mistake. Because when Rick tells that, the dumb cop or whatever, it's like, maybe we'll end up on a TV show like Cops. Mm-hmm. And Rick's like, right now, what you need to do is make sure that you got your safeties off and there's a round in the chamber. And then the guy looks at his gun and has to click the safety off because it's a Glock.
There's no safety.
They don't have, and especially that, I'm not saying they haven't made models of old models of Glocks. Some I know had safeties way, way back. But that model certainly did not have a safety. You can even look and see there's no safety on it. He's like, It just was like, it's a little detail, I guess they thought it won't really enough to matter, but those of us that do own guns were like, there's no safety on that Glock.
Right.
What are you doing?
I know that I forget who it was, but one episode, dude was like holding the gun with like his index finger
Again,
stretched
Dwight.
out. Was that Dwight?
Dwight.
Yeah.
He's got his middle finger on the trigger
Right.
and his first finger along the slide. Like that's, unless he had lost his first finger,
Right.
that's the stupidest. That's to date the dumbest gun mistake on The Walking Dead ever. It didn't look cool.
Right.
It just looks stupid.
I wonder if that was the actor's decision or if like a director was just like, oh man, you know, it would look really cool as if you held it like
I
this.
really hope it was the actor's decision because I didn't like Dwight at all. I didn't like the actor that played him. I just was like, he's just slimy. I don't like this dude at all.
Yeah.
And then, he's grown on me now and I actually do like him. But so it just gave me a reason to hate him. So I like to blame him for that.
Right. Yeah.
Looks so stupid.
Yes, it was.
So stupid. But if Daryl would have died, man, holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, you think of it.
I mean, who would have went to the prison then? They're in the lineup. He kills Abraham. Still probably would have happened. Actually, nobody probably would have went to the prison because I think Daryl was the only one with the stones to stand up and punch Negan.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else would have done that. So I guess Glenn would still be alive.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if Daryl would have died, Glenn would still be alive. Abraham would have died. That would have sucked. But at the end of the day, you would have because did Negan only plan to kill one person just to show him that he was serious, and then that was their punishment. And it wasn't until Daryl stood up and punched him that he had to punish Daryl. And so yeah,
Do you think if Glenn lived, he would have tried to have talked Rick out of like his whole rebellion against Negan? Like, look, man, Maggie's pregnant. Let's not, like, this isn't a time to go to war. Let's just kind of let it ride, and that's it.
You could be right. I mean, Glenn might have done. I could see more Glenn and Maggie just trying to go off. Him telling Rick, like, look, I support what you're doing. It needs to happen, but my wife is pregnant, and I can't put her in a situation where her or the baby are in danger, and I don't want the child to grow up without a father. So we're gonna just go off for a while, and kind of be on our own, and hopefully you'll understand. And I could have totally seen them going off and being absent for most of the all-out war saga. I mean, maybe making appearances every now and again as far as, Rick is bringing them supplies. Because I also think Rick would completely understand, that scenario. I mean, he's been through the perils of protecting a pregnant wife and, all of that. And if anything, he owes Glenn his life. So, I feel like Rick would have been reluctant, but he would have understood. And we could have honestly, instead of having that whole arc with Carol living out in a cabin in the woods and crap, it would have been Glenn and Maggie.
Right.
And they would have just been more sideline, which would have sucked for the characters, but it would have made more sense. And I feel like that's where Glenn's mind would have been.
Yeah.
So, you probably would have had a Glenn, even though he would have been alive, you wouldn't have seen near as much of Glenn and Maggie. But Maggie was a pretty pivotal part of All Out War. So then it calls into question, like, who would be leading the hilltop? Would it be Jesus?
Yeah, man, that's tough. I don't know.
Very, very good scenario.
Yeah, man, Stefan laid some good ones on us. Everybody always lays some good stuff on us.
Y'all lay the good stuff on us.
That's for sure.
We like it. It's like we're in the bond of pleasures.
Yeah.
I think a listener got it twisted up and told you good job on your Victor Strand impression.
Oh, did they?
To date, even though I don't think I've heard you do a Victor Strand impression.
I don't do impressions.
And then said I need to work on my Eugene impression, which I do admit my Eugene impression's probably freaking terrible. But, it's
awesome Victor Strand plus JP role playing in this one. So I think he's saying you did a good job being Victor Strand and role playing as if you were seducing me.
Oh, I thought maybe he thought you were Victor Strand, which I'm cool with, but I was just going to say, JP, did you do a Victor Strand that I don't remember?
I don't do impressions. No.
I'm sure my Eugene is mighty terrible. I don't know how to do Eugene. I'd have to really and 100% watch and observe Eugene in order to do his accent because he talks kind of like this. No, that was terrible. Yeah, my Eugene needs some work. I 100% agree with that. I will watch Eugene. Strand's easy to do just because I have a deep voice, and he just speaks so prolific and just, JP, it's something about your nipples. I just want to rip that shirt right off of you.
And it's tough to jump from Victor Strand to Eugene. It's a tough transition just do like that.
There's just something about that Jpslim fellow, the way he walks, the way he talks.
God, if only you could summon that into reality.
if Daniel could get his damn memory back, I would talk to him and get advice on how to seduce JP.
Oh, man. One day I'm going to meet him at a Comic-Con.
And you're going to get hauled away by security.
Probably.
Please get this guy away from me.
So I do get pretty drunk at Comic-Con, so yeah, that could happen.
They're fun to do that, though.
Yeah. I mean,
if there's ever somewhere where I know that I want to spend money, but I know the frugal part of me wouldn't let me if I was sober, I'll have a little buzz and go somewhere so that I spend the money and don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like, a shot of Jack's like $10, but...
Oh, yeah. Well, if you don't pregame.
Yeah. I didn't realize there was going to be booze at that Comic-Con.
I'm a cheap ass, man. I'm all about pre-gaming.
Yeah,
if I'm not driving, shoot, I'll take a few shots on the way up there, have a few beers.
Yeah.
We did a little brewery hop last weekend, and we had a party bus, drove us up there and drove us home. And we were, I was like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to buy some drinks at these breweries, but these drinks are like $10 a piece. And if we're going to be going for like 8 or 9 hours, I mean, you could be talking about hundreds of dollars spent on booze. So we had a case of beer, that a guy and I were sharing on the way up there, and then between stops and stuff like that, we would have that to kind of keep it going so that you didn't have to go out and, you didn't have to buy 10 drinks at each place. You could get 2 or 3 and keep the party going, but you didn't have to go broke doing so.
Damn, 10 of those craft beers, man. Yeah, y'all would be carrying my ass to the car.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't just do that. We had some distillery, so we were having some whiskey drinks.
Oh, man, yeah, that sounds beautiful.
It was really nice. If you ever... It's between Lynchburg and Charlottesville, Virginia. But there's Bold Rock, there's Silverback, Blue Mountain, I think. And I can't remember the name of another one we went to, but all of those were great places.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for the what ifs. Please lay them on us again. Throw them. If we didn't answer it, please, God, throw it in there again, and we will eventually get to it. We promise you. This is still, to date, one of my favorite podcasts that we do. So let's continue to lay those Walking Dead what-ifs out there. And they don't have to be as elaborate. Don't get me wrong. We love the elaborate ones. But if it's something simple, like what would have happened if the Sons of Anarchy survived into the zombie apocalypse, how would they have, handled it, blah, blah. Whatever fantasy, fun kind of fan fiction you want to throw in there, just throw it in.
Yeah.
And we'll see you Monday as we review Fear the Walking Dead. Hell yeah. And The Walking Dead, the world. The world of boredom. I'm sorry, the world beyond, whatever it's called. But yeah, so we'll see you Monday. We hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. JP, anything you want to leave them with before we go?
Just a smile and I don't know. No, I don't.
And the love of Victor Strand.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I feel like I'm just going to wait one night when you're sleeping and just like creep into your house and be like, JP, it's me, Victor Strand.
Oh, God.
We have to go. Just to see what you go grab your girlfriend and start going nuts. Roll over. She's like, what are you doing? Shh, Strand. Oh, man. But we'll see you soon. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead.